Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Anita Vandervalk. I'm the Vice President with Iteris, and I am very honored to be moderating this panel this morning. We have a little bit of a different treat ahead for you in the next hour or so. We've got 4 excellent professionals who will be talking about not just the impacts of COVID. We've seen dozens of sessions. Here's what COVID did. We know this is what it looks like. We're going to start with a little bit of that. We're going to figure out what COVID has done in our environment and how it's affected our traffic engineering and how it's affected how we run our signal systems and intersections and ITS systems. But more importantly, we're going to have an open panel. We're going to each of our panelists will give a little bit of an introduction as to the kind of the lay of the land, what's going on in their region. And then we're going to talk about what COVID means going forward for operations in your ITS, with ITS, with traffic engineering in your TOCs and so on. So we're going to have an open conversation. We're going to go back and forth. I have several planned questions for the panelists, and I would like to encourage you as I'm going through that, go ahead and enter your questions into the question box, and I'll be monitoring those as well. So I'm going to start with introductions of our panel, and they're going to speak in this order, just briefly, not going to be huge PowerPoints, 1 or 2 slides, and then the best part of this is we're going to have an ongoing discussion. So our first speaker will be, our first panelist is Tony Tagliaferri. I always work on that one, Tony, sorry. Division 10 Traffic Engineer for the North Carolina Department of Transportation. Tony has 20 years of experience in traffic and transportation engineering in the private, local government, and state government sectors, covering a broad range of fields from planning studies, traffic impact, to traffic signal design and signal timing and implementation. He has a bachelor's degree in civil engineering from Duke University and a master's in civil from NC State. He's a registered PE in North Carolina. Tony's life in lockdown is spent with his wonderful wife, Allison, their 5-year-old son, Brody, working hard, watching cartoons, and stepping or not stepping on Legos. Second, we're going to have Matthew. Matt Carlisle is an NC State Signal Systems Engineer and oversees the Signal System Timing and Operations Group, which is responsible for the efficient coordination and operation of North Carolina's nearly 400 signal systems. In his current role, he is involved in many new and upcoming technologies in the ITS and signal operations field, including high-resolution data, advanced traffic signal performance measures, advanced traffic management systems, and automated connected vehicles. Our third panelist is Andrei. Andrei is a North Carolina professional engineer serving as a traffic engineer and operations manager for the city of Concord. His area of expertise is in intelligent transportation systems deployment and integration, as well as operation and maintenance of arterial traffic signal systems. Proficient in electrical design, networking, automation, and robotics, he has previously worked as a controls engineer for a state-of-the-art industrial automation integrator as an automation engineer for a Tier 1 automotive parts manufacturer. A graduate of UNC Charlotte, his educational background includes a Bachelor's of Science in Computer Engineering and a Master's of Science in Engineering with a concentration in transportation. During the pandemic, he's been appreciating staying home a little extra. He's not at home now, obviously, with his amazing 2.5-year-old daughter and his wife. Our fourth speaker panelist is Wesley. Wesley Vo graduated from NC State with a BS in civil engineering. He has the privilege to serve as the citizens of North Carolina for 13 years as an assistant division director, traffic engineering in Winston-Salem, and senior signal systems timing engineer with the NCDOT. He joined the town of Cary in 2005 and together constructed Cary's first fiber optic cable network. A brand new traffic management center that houses the advanced traffic management system called MIST. And since then, they've upgraded the ATMS called Centrax with digital cameras and Ethernet IP fiber network. They partnered with NC State DOT and piloted the first FAT challenge using dedicated short-range communications in the state. Currently, he is the senior project manager over the Connected Vehicle Technology Project, and the project will allow it to set the foundation for future connected vehicles. He is married to Lisa and always keeps their 4 sons with him. Daniel is a junior in UNC Charlotte, Thomas a cadet at the U.S. Military Academy and West Point. Ooh, you're busy, Wesley. All right, I'm going to change the presenter so that we can set the stage as I talked about. Tony is going to tell us a little bit about what has been going on in his part of the world since COVID.
All right, thanks, Anita. If you have, can you see my screen on your bingo card? Go ahead and check that off. And can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes,
If
sir.
so, then all right. If so, we'll go ahead and get started. So
Yes.
when this whole thing started, from a traffic engineer's perspective, I think, like a lot of us, it was around, a year or so ago, a year and a month ago. We were all so young and naive then. We were, we kept hearing about this coronavirus and all these things going on in Asia and Europe. And, that the fateful day came down where our governor released a statement and said, we're going to close schools for 2 weeks and we're going to ban gatherings of more than 100 people and everybody's going to stay 6 feet apart and we're going to get through this and this will be over by the end of the spring. Well, that sounded great, didn't it? It was nice and temporary, and we were all gonna get through this together, and we're gonna be done, and we're gonna enjoy our summer. We're gonna have Memorial Day cookouts and this, that, and the other. So from a traffic engineer's perspective, we said, okay, so we're gonna have to suspend a lot of the things we do. We can't collect data. We can't do this, that, and the other because everybody's staying home. But it's temporary. We're going to do our thing. We're going to use historical data. We're going to pull whatever we have from old things. We'll use factors, whatever it takes. But, by the summer and definitely by the fall when kids are back in school, we'll be back to normal. So, we got through that first period and then we saw, things aren't going to be so quick to get back. We get through the summer. And then you're not supposed to be able to read that slide. It's supposed to be small purpose because it gives all the protocols. I just wanted to kind of, show an example of, our schools are going to reopen in the fall, but, here's all the things we're going to have to do and all the hoops we're going to have to jump through. So, we get through that summer and things are trending in the right direction. Everybody's thinking, okay, things are getting back to normal. But as engineers and traffic engineers, we're looking at our patterns and, Matt will show a lot of this in his information, but, we're getting a lot of this data. And it's showing that, our traffic volumes went down, they're coming back up, but the patterns have completely changed. We're not looking at the AM, PM peaks that we had. We're not looking at the typical, off-peak drops, things like that. Everything's changed, and there's so many different ways that people are using their cars and, walking to things and just all kinds of different, public transit is way down because of the pandemic. And when that comes back, what's it going to be? So a lot more uncertainty coming through the summer. Then we get to the fall, we get to the winter, we get to now. And this slide is actually, we did this presentation a month ago. And so, this stuff was fresh when I presented it a month ago. And even now, this stuff is not the latest. But, we've had a lot of vaccinations. We have these new variants. I think the South African variant was a twinkle in our eye a month ago when I was talking about this, but now that's here. But, we've got a lot of things that have turned into where it's starting to sound like things are going to come back to normal, but it depends on what you read. You could read two articles. One says, people who are vaccinated are going to be able to do this. And then the next one says that people who are vaccinated have to wear the mask because they're going to get sick. And then you just basically, long story short, don't open up Twitter. But, anyway, so, we get to this point where a lot of us are, and myself included, just in general life, are saying, what's next? I mean, we thought this was temporary, and then we thought it was going to be longer, but it's going to end eventually. And now we're hearing, even if we're all vaccinated, we have to do this or that or the other. So what's next? Are people going back to work? Are people going back to school? School sounds more likely. Work could be iffy. I mean, my wife works for a large company over here in Charlotte, and they're talking about staying home forever. So there's lots of uncertainty, and as engineers, we basically are saying the same thing from a data standpoint. This whole let's grab historical data and factor it up and plan on 2025 that way, things like that. We don't know if that's true because in 2025 patterns may have completely changed forever. Who knows? So again, what's next? So with all of that, I will switch the presenter to Matt so he can talk about what we've been seeing. There you go, Matt. Send your way.
Thanks, Tony. Can you guys see my screen? All right.
Yes.
So like Tony was talking about, I'm actually going to show a little bit of the data behind all of those various points over the last year or so. So about a month into the pandemic, I started working with 6 different municipalities across the state to track the traffic volumes to actually see what we're seeing out on the road. And so I worked with Cary, Charlotte, Concord, Greensboro, Raleigh, and Wilmington to collect their detector data from their traffic signals and put it all into one one place. And what you're seeing here is about a year's worth of data tracking that since, essentially our baseline of last February. So at the peak, or maybe the trough, I guess, of all of this, we were down on average about 34% on volumes, with some municipalities like Cary seeming to be the hardest hit, almost down 50%. And then we saw that sort of slowly ramp up throughout the summer with each one of these different safer at home phases and then easing restrictions. We seem to see a little bit of a bump all the way until maybe November or so last year. Since then, we've been pretty consistent, down from 8% around then all the way up to about 6% now. So we've held pretty steady for the last 5 months or so. We haven't really seen any significant changes during that time. It's just been a slow rise. And I think that something that that isn't really reflected here is the traffic patterns. So what we're seeing here is just total volumes, throughout the day over the course of a few days a week compared to every previous week. So what this doesn't capture is how that traffic is actually spread across the day. And I think that Andrei is probably going to show some more details on this, but essentially we're definitely seeing those peaking patterns they've spread out, and they're also not as high as they used to be. So even though we have almost the same amount of volumes overall throughout the day, it's very different in how it's actually manifesting out on the roadway. And what I think we're really going to see, I think the next and likely the last big bump that we're going to see is when schools are pretty much across the board back in person, which is maybe the fall, let's say. I think that's going to be our next and probably final big jump, because I don't really see a significant sort of one-time big jump from employers. I think the employers are going to make decisions on their own time about if and when people are going back to work and to what scale, whereas I think the schools will be more of more or less a line in the sand about when there's a pretty significant amount of kids going back to school. So with that being said, I will pass it over to, let's see, who's next? Andrei?
Yes. Can everyone hear me properly?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Okay, slides up.
Yeah, we can see it.
So once the dust settled in, about 2 or 3 weeks in, after this, mess started, which I considered to be the beginning of March of last year, NCDOT got a hold of us to request volume data from our advanced detector data. So what we were seeing initially were wild variations. We started off with weekly reports that later on transformed into bi-weekly reports, where we cherry-picked a couple of important intersections on our main corridors, and we started looking and seeing exactly what the variations were. So obviously over here in the city of Concord, we have quite a couple of corridors, but we have a couple that are close and dear to our hearts. The first one is the Concord Mills Boulevard, which is one of the largest ones by volume in the state, home of the Concord Mills outlet mall that, depending on the year, obviously not this past year, it brings in somewhere between 16 and 20 million people over here. And then our other corridor, which you can see, the south of it, highlighted over here, is US 29, which is a commuter corridor. City of Concord being the largest suburb of City of Charlotte, is, a major, 29 is a major commuter corridor. So we cherry-picked a couple of locations, and we started looking at the data and seeing exactly what we can actually tell from it. So obviously, let's go back to early March of 2020. This is how a corridor volume curve used to look like on quite a couple of intersections from US 29 southbound. And lo and behold, while some of the AM peak, some of the PM peak is still there, obviously the curves shifted quite a little bit. So especially the numbers, obviously, because we had quite a huge drop off in volume. So fast forward to what Tony was mentioning about a month ago when we've collected this data for this presentation, is we're looking about the same as the new times. Jokingly, I call these the after times for volume, but we're definitely having a new normal. So while we're Charlotte's largest suburb over here, we're a small locality. Staffing is a premium, so we rely on very efficient and judicious data and use of advanced technology. So we're fortunate enough to have been using for about 3 years a deployment of ATSPM, so traffic signal performance metrics deployment, and this helped out tremendously to actually see right now to illustrate to you guys what we've actually seen. So what you see over here in this graph is 2 intersections on Concord Mills / Brunsmith Boulevard. So each side of I-85. You can see quite a major drop off in volume right there in March, and then down there you can actually see a heat map, a volume heat map, so you can kind of see a light, easy progression of restrictions easing up, and all the way to about end of August, beginning of September, to actually start looking what it used to look like back in normal times. And to the right you actually see Brunsmith Boulevard and Whittington Road, which depicts about the same type of pattern, with the nice caveat that after the holidays you can actually see a big drop off. So what did we do with all this data? Well, we reacted. So while we didn't react immediately, over here what you can see is timing plans. So you can actually see a volume chart for an intersection, for a commuter intersection on US 29 North, US 29 and Fiscal School Road. And you can actually see how we've had to basically retime and this corridor. And a shout out over here to my signal timing engineer, traffic operator, did a great job to retime all of our major corridors. Likewise over here, another intersection from US 29, when you can actually see that we had to basically rehash all our plan structure. So this gave us an opportunity to react properly. What we're probably going to see from here on out is anyone's guess, just as Tony was mentioning. While we had I guess a good idea that vaccinations are going to solve everything, now we're probably looking at a new type of normal. So let's see where that takes us, and let's see what we can do about it. Thank you.
Thanks, Andrei. I'm going to turn it over to Wesley for his view. Here we go.
Show my screen. Okay. Let's see here. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Good morning, Southern District, ITE. My name is Wesley Vogt. It is my privilege and honor to share this technical session with these wonderful friends and peer on this panel, and especially this topic. Each of us have a different experience based on our geographic location, economic condition of our area, and the kind of community we serve. I am very fortunate to serve in the Wake County. It is in the heart of the Research Triangle area, where a large portion of our workforce are in research, in the university, high-tech industry, medical facility, hospitals such as Wake Med, Duke, and UNC. Also, our community have another advantage, for example, faster internet, such as Google Fiber, AT&T, and Spectrum, which help our community transition much easier during this period. Faster internet has allowed more commerce to flourish and survive during this once-in-a-lifetime event. Both factor location and internet access have given this research triangle multinational community more opportunity to work, to play, to go to school remotely, and to shop from home during the COVID-19 pandemic. Our traffic volume instantly dropped 50% when it began in March, and it's very slowly moving upward to the pre-pandemic level. As an example, I've shown here, as you see on my screen, this is a traffic volume that's been tracked that Matthew shared with you earlier. This, as you can see, the red line represents Cary, and as you can see, we are very slowly moving our traffic upward. We're a little behind on Charlotte, Concord, Greensboro, Raleigh, and Wilmington, and the white line represents the average. And even with the average, we are very slowly moving upward, and I believe it's just because of our logistic location where we are. So each week, every 2 weeks, we collected traffic volume to share with NCDOT. And so we selected 2 corridors, NC 55, which run north-south, and US 64 that run east and west to represent the Cary area as a whole. So each of these dots represent a traffic location. And so we collect the volume from our system detection loop and our detection and our in-ground detection as well. I want to even further narrow the scope and just talks about NC 55 corridor traffic volume. NC 55 runs north and south. North of us is Durham, east of us is Raleigh, south of us is Apex, and then west of us is Chapel Hill. And so we, like I said, we collected traffic volume when the pandemic began in March of 2020. There is definitely AM peak that lasts about an hour to 2, and it settled out. And then as we collect the traffic volume, we see a trend. Traffic have dropped, and there's no longer an AM peak that's shown. And then even with our recent traffic volume in March 2021, that trend continues. If there is a flat line, there's no AM peak. So what about the southbound direction? So before the COVID, we have a PM peak where in the AM, worker from the research triangle leave, and you can see the peak for a 2-hour peak around 5. And the same trend continue on as COVID continue, and as you also, so the data prove that this trend is continuing to be the same for our area. Continue working from home, a hybrid continue work from home, a hybrid, or this traffic trend is my prediction because of the reason that I mentioned above about my area. Your community may be different outcome than mine is my best guess. Recently, I read an article, according to finance information site Wallet Hub, North Carolina ranked #2 for the best working from home. Remote, this is a quote, remote working will be more accepted and prevalent than it was pre-COVID, in part because of the employee expectation. They have proven for a year they can produce, they can be productive from home, and they should have the option to work from home. So that's the article basically says that it had proven that it had proven that what we were talking about and the trend. The biggest game changer, I believe, in returning to the new traffic norm is the community ability to access faster internet. In my community, I have to rethink about the signal operation because of the traffic signal peak volume intensity, time of the day traffic, who are our customer, and the citizen we serve. For example, we have to add more leading pedestrian crossing. Leading pedestrian crossing is a feature that adds more protection for walkers who use many of our popular greenways and sidewalk in Cary. We have increased our video detection presence, so it's give us more flexibilities and so forth. We went from 60 pan tube zoom camera to 120 during this pandemic, so it allows us more flexibility. Challenges we face and we'll need to address are the new traffic peaks, volume, intensity, the intersection capacity or lack of the normal traffic volume that we are used to when we begin to develop a signal plan. Now we have to consider things that we are seeing as such thing as truck volume and additional traffic as such. I continue to have these questions post-COVID and going forward. What about when we have a lot of truck traffic in our local street? What about the wear and tear on our local street because of increasing truck traffic? Will the life cycle of the local roads shorten? Have we budgeted for the additional cost? So with that, we were thinking about how cool it would be if we would invest in hardware and software, like many of our panel have said that we're using software to solve most of our issue. And with that, thank you very much.
Thanks, Wesley. Excellent. All right, I'm going to change presenter, and we're going to start our discussion part. I also have a couple of poll questions, so I'm going to go ahead and start. What the gentlemen are talking about is the new normal, whatever that means. What is the new normal? And we wanted to just engage with you a little bit and hear where you are with respect to working at home or schools closing or so on. So if we can pull up poll number 1. I say to the mystery man in the background. There we go. Is it open?
I'm seeing it.
I see it.
Interesting, I do not see it. Oh yeah, okay, we're collecting the response, I see it. So who is still working at home? We're just trying to get a feel for that. And it's looking like 76% hybrid. Okay, so we're getting more hybrid than we were a month ago, don't you think, you guys?
Yes, definitely.
A month ago. Yeah, we definitely are moving in that direction. If we can pull up poll number 2, please. If you answered that you are working from home, do you anticipate that you will go back to 100% in the office? Will you go back 100% to the office, yes or no?
There should be another option that says not unless my boss makes me.
This is a good example, though, just in the last month, how much these numbers have changed. And it's a little different audience, but I mean, similar, a lot of engineers, and the numbers have changed significantly just in these 35 days or whatever it is that we've.
I know. Yeah, we should have tracked. We should go back and look at what we recorded, because we're getting 61% say no, they won't go back 100%. That's amazing. That's
wow.
Amazing. Yeah.
And
the third one, are your schools A, fully in person, fully remote, or hybrid?
And this is as of today, because I picked this question, so it's whatever it is today, because I know this one definitely has changed a lot.
Absolutely.
At least in our area in the last month. I mean, in our local area here, we're almost fully all in person, which surprised me because we're a month away from the end of the year.
And because all the teachers have their vaccine, and then a lot of, within a month, that's a lot of.
Look at that, we have none at fully remote. Most at hybrid.
Oh, wow.
That's great. So one thing this definitely for sure tells us is that it's changing so rapidly. And what does that mean for a new normal? I want to ask you guys, what does it mean? I mean, not trying to predict what's going to happen, but how will this changing and fluctuation, and I love some of the trends that Wesley talked about, the trucks, the changing peaks. How will whatever the new normal is affect how you operate your traffic signal system or ITS systems in the future? I'm going to start with Matt.
Well, one thing I would say is that I would say that it's, especially right now, and as we continue to sort of ramp back up, if you will, it's important to probably not knee-jerk react to things, because if school's all the way back fully in person one day, I don't think that means that we need to react to that the very next day, because as we all know, things can change pretty rapidly. So I think it's important to try to be a little bit pragmatic in when we implement changes and adjust to these wild variations in volumes that we are well outside of anything we've seen prior to a year ago.
Agree. Tony, what are your thoughts on what we should do in the future, how this affects either how you've been doing business in the past few months or how that transitions to the future?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with a lot of what Matt said. I think, signal timing in general as a practice, there's been, there's two different approaches. There's the, as soon as there's a fender bender that blocks a lane, we need to change every signal. And by the time they transition, the fender bender's cleared and we should have never changed all the signals. Or there's, like Matt said, there's the more pragmatic approach of let's see how this shakes out. And, at the risk of becoming too conservative, which I don't think we do, but, you don't want people to think that you're not doing anything either. But I think, we've reached that point where, and I think we'll talk about this a little more as we go on, that, I think a lot of us said, let's wait and see what happens. Let's hold off on all the things. And now we're getting more to the point where, we also have to get back to life. Like we can't keep saying, let's wait for normal to come back. Let's do this or the other. Not in general, not in terms of taking off masks and doing all this. I'm not saying go wild and party. I'm saying from an engineering standpoint, we need to get back to life and start, doing our retiming projects and doing, the things that we can do that can address where we are now, because even when schools do come back, one of the things that I'm wondering about, I think a lot of us think that the AM peak is reduced a lot because schools are gone and because people aren't commuting to work. But, when schools go back in person, all those people who aren't commuting to work, they might all take their kids to school now. And so busing may go down, parent drop off may go up, and we may have a whole different situation around schools. We just don't know yet. So I think, this summer is probably going to be, at least for us around this panel, this summer is probably going to be our period of kind of getting back to doing what we need to do and not concentrating as much on waiting for things to get to a pre-pandemic level. And I actually got an email while we were in this panel about our traffic count program starting back up, which is, I guess, kind of ironic because, that's one of the things that's been suspended this whole time. And, we're here talking about data, and that's something we haven't been able to collect for a while. So it's a sign that things are heading in that direction.
That's great. Wesley, what are your thoughts on how you should operate differently?
One of the things that we have done in town of Cary is like I said earlier, we add additional over 50%, 120 camera in place. And one of the things that we want to be active, so we use the camera to verify the data that we're getting. And so looking forward, the data, getting the data is very important to redoing our timing. And so we want to verify that. So that's why we have a camera in place. And so also it's great to me that there's a lot of company out there that have software that can analyze these data much better and faster than we're normal. And so we're looking ways to invest in software to help us, to assist us. And that's one of the things that we can move forward. One of the things that I realized that the data, the historic data that I've been collecting over working at a Cary here for 15 years, most of those data may not be good anymore, because moving forward, we have to look at the new norm and what are those trends. And so for us is invest in new software, a new tool, so that we can react quicker and on a timely manner. And how can we turn around the timing quicker than normal?
Perfect. It looks like we lost Tony.
Uh-oh.
No, I'm here. I just turned off my camera because I'm trying to make the room brighter so I don't keep getting dark and bright.
I got you.
Okay, you're in the dark. You're back there.
I'm back.
There you are.
We missed you there, Tony.
What are your thoughts on this new normal and how it affects operating in the near future?
Well, I mean, it took us a while, you know, looking back now, a year back, it took us a while to react, partly because, you know, exactly what Tony was saying. You know, there are two ways to approach this. So we prefer to, you know, see what the true effects are, try to get, you know, a bulk of data, then rummage through, and then react to, you know, whatever that new condition was. Now, as for the future, as I was saying, you know, we're the largest, you know, suburb of, you know, Charlotte over here. So, you know, we're still a small locality by means and, you know, financial. So we're trying to get, so, you know, what I can definitely tell you that, you know, we did not stop. You know, on the contrary, we've accelerated. We keep on converting from the old Oasis legacy software in North Carolina to AAC3 to be able to, you know, collect more data, collect more volume data, have, you know, signal performance metrics for every single intersection is, you know, is the pipe dream, you know, over here. So we can actually be able to quantify properly what do we have in front of us. So whenever, you know, exactly what I was saying, the after times truly settle in, we have ways to react, and we have ways to properly address this. Not go in and, you know, just try to find new material, new software, new everything, so we can see what the new condition is.
Oh, that's great. The topic of data, more real-time data seems to be prevalent. I want to ask Tony, you mentioned, so get back on doing retiming, data collection for retiming. How will that change? I mean, and why have so we've stopped, basically, for the most part, right? We've stopped doing your typical retiming or data collection for retiming. So assuming we never, is that the sun coming in and out?
Yeah, I
Okay.
don't know. It's typical technical, you know, the room feels the same brightness the whole time, but I don't know. I'll work on it again.
I know.
But no, you know, I think one of the things that, you know, we've talked about, and I think that we were trending this way already, but I think we really, the pandemic has accelerated a lot of things in our lives, and this may be another one of them, is just the ability that we're starting to gain to use real-time information and real-time data to do things, as opposed to, you know, relying on historical, you know, counting 13 hours in one day in 2018 and using that to time the traffic signals for the next 4 years. You know, it's worked and it's great, but, you know, as Andrei said, you know, as we grow more with these signal performance metrics and other ways to collect, you know, either probe data or detector data or any kind of other, you know, robust data, that we can, instead of, you know, going out and doing one 13-hour count, we can look at things like, you know, the last 6 months of Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays at this intersection, things like that, and easily aggregate that. And you know, we can do something where we time something for 2021, and then, you know, in 2022, when things are whatever they've become later, we can say, okay, well, now we've got these last 6 months, and we can, you know, keep having things be more up to date and recent and reflecting a lot of these changes, so that we don't have to guess as much as I know a lot of us feel like right now we're still guessing. So it's nice to, all of us know in planning and engineering, data is king. I mean, that's the thing that everybody needs, and I think we're reaching an age where that's going to become more and more prevalent. And as 5G gets bigger and we get the ability to get more bandwidth, and as Wesley said, better internet, not just for the people working from home, but for us people who work in ITS and the engineering realm that rely on a lot of network information. That the faster internet that we have and the more reliable information we can get, the more that real-time data we can collect.
Yeah, if I can.
Go ahead, Matt.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I was just going to add to what Tony said, that when you're looking at my chart, you might have noticed there was a lot of municipalities names on there of where we're collecting the data, but I don't have any information from our DOT closed loop systems, and this is nothing profound. Anybody that is familiar at all with our systems already knows this, but this really shined a light on our lack of capabilities to get any sort of real-time data out of our closed loop systems, at least even moderately robust data, or accurate sometimes. So it's like Tony said, I think we feel even less confident than maybe we did in the past that, hey, we need to retime this system, and we have some counts in there from a year ago. Can we use those? Yeah, it's probably fine. Apply a growth factor, and it's probably more or less the same, unless it's had a tremendous amount of development or something like that. But a count today is probably going to be wildly different than volumes in 6 months from now, and we know that it was very different than volumes 6 months ago. But it's going to be, I guess what I'm getting at is data has always been important, but I think this only shows that it's even more important than it used to be, being able to collect real-time reliable data and not always relying on, like Tony said, a 13-hour count one day of the week some time period ago.
And just to add to that, some of the things we're considering is sharing the data. We know the data is very important. And so now we're kind of working and collaborating with other departments and sharing our data with them so they can use it as well. And so we knew that the cost of the data is very expensive, and we just don't want to take one point, but we use our system to collect the data and then in turn use that data and share it with other departments and then get their input as well. And that way we're kind of sharing the cost, and they will understand our mission as well. And then in turn we'll help them with their mission to achieve their mission as well.
I'm glad you went there, Wesley. I was going to try to step through some of the challenges, and you jumped right to, kind of solutions. But so what are some of the challenges? And first of all, what type of real-time data? Let's just set the stage a little bit for that. And what are some of the challenges going in that direction? One another assumption, and I do have a poll question on this in a moment, is the assumption that budgets have probably gone down with COVID too. So how does that play in? If we need more data, more software, how is that, push-pull situation? So that's a lot of questions, but just wanted to frame some thoughts. Andrei, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, for us specifically over here, we were fortunate enough to at least have a good baseline, so we can, tack onto that. And we've seen requests from, other departments, just as Wesley was saying. So planning department was asking us for data, which was, a great thing. Now that we've actually have had enough historical data that we can actually share with them. And obviously budgets, like everywhere else, were hit. We've seen the hit as well. And the expectations never change per se. So whenever you have to, and I'm talking about us from the perspective of a small municipality in the end, out of, technically we're a little bit smaller than Cary, even in terms of population and traffic signals. It's easy enough to concentrate on, one or two or three goals when you're dealing with, when you've always dealt with budget shortfalls. So seeing another decrease, that just crystallizes your priorities in the end.
Excellent. Wesley or Matt, anything to add on the types of data?
One of
the
the
challenges with getting those data?
One of the things that most of our data comes from loop detection and system detection, but we're looking forward to different technology to retrieve those data. And we were very fortunate to, prior to the pandemic, we received a Campo grant, for a $2 million grant to upgrade our system, our hardware, so that we can begin to collect the volume and manage in more a better way. And so, in order to include other department in, we went and sold this connected vehicle to other departments like the fire department, and other department that would be benefit from that. And so, from our perspective, we went and looked outward for different ways to collect volume, but to help our budget, we include other department and how it would benefit them, even though the project was basically for traffic signal system alone. We went out and include our transit. We include our fire department, our police, and we would explain to them how these data would help them as well.
So for me, in terms of the types of data, turning traffic volume data is very helpful, and it can be an indicator for a lot of things. But what we really care about at the core of it is the performance measures that comes from that data. And so a lot of what Wesley and Andrei are talking about is based on physical hardware, collecting that data and creating performance metrics from it, which is honestly, probably it's the best and most accurate way to do it. But for me specifically, it's an issue of geographical scope and scale of the system from a statewide perspective. So we have almost 400 closed loop systems around the entire state. It's about 2,500 signals. So the thought of adding detection and upgrading controllers and getting communications to all of those systems is not insurmountable, but it's very large. It's a lot different than concentrating on a single municipality. And so I think for us, a lot of that, the performance measures that we get is likely to be derived from vehicle trajectory data, probe data, because we can, we still have to purchase it, but it's, from what we're seeing anyways, it appears to be about an order of magnitude less than actually implementing physical hardware out in the field. And I think that we can likely get not 100% of the same benefit, but a significant portion. So I'd rather have half the benefit, let's say, of hardware-based ATSPM at all of my signals than 100% of it at, 10% of my signals, just as a rough numbers example. But that's sort of where I see the closed loop system data coming from, likely moving forward. Not all of it, but a significant portion.
Anybody want to comment on that? That thought is I think it's a different approach for traffic engineers in general, and getting that shift to the use of probe data, for example. How do you see that as being a challenge?
Well, I'll jump in. I'll say challenge is myself and historically and a lot of other traffic engineers, probably including Wesley, Andrei, and Tony, we're a little leery and wary of how much we can trust that data and how accurate it is. We hear a lot about the penetration rate, what percentage of the vehicles are being reported, and it's always a very low number. I don't know, 2%, 3%, 5% even, which to us sounds minuscule. We want 100%, right? Because that's what we're used to getting out of loops in the road or cameras on the side of the road. So I would say that's the biggest challenge to overcome is proving that the data that is based on vehicle trajectories at probe-based data is accurate, reliable, and pretty comparable to hardware-based detection. And obviously, it's dependent on a lot of factors, volumes and penetration rate likely being the two biggest of those. I'll let the others address that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I would say for me, it's always been, one of those things that maybe has the lower floor but a much higher ceiling. So, especially on arterials, the probe data had a lot to be desired in the earlier 2010s, I'd say. But things have gotten a lot better, and the abilities that we'll have with that data, if it becomes as robust as we hope, is like OD information and you know, not just turning movements, but actual like origins and destinations and things along those lines that'll help, you know, all of us in the field. And I think, you know, that'll help a lot of things. You know, like Matt was saying, that one of the biggest challenges is that, you know, signal designers, you're looking to operate the signal as efficiently as possible. So you're not necessarily worried about things like collecting right turn data, you know, for a count. And so, you know, it's, at least in North Carolina, almost all of our right turn lanes that don't need to have detection don't have detection. And so, you know, one of the things Andrei and I were looking at is a significant interchange here in Charlotte or in Concord, that, you know, a lot of the volume was a right turn and it just disappeared in the SPM data because there's nothing detected it. So you get down to the next signal and we figured out there's our right turns because, you know, they were just gone. But, you know, so that's an example. One of the things Matt was talking about, that, you know, there'd have to be significant upgrades, not just to, you know, existing retrofits, but, you know, just, you know, changes in philosophy of design and things along those lines that, you know, if stuff like this probe data is available, then they're not relying on our signal design. They're relying on, you know, what's already out in the natural world, and it's you know, the private sector is driving it, which helps. If we have the ability to receive that data, and it's the same thing I kind of say about connected vehicles as we move forward. I think the private sector is going to drive a lot of the innovation, and we're hopefully ready to go along for the ride. And I hate to use all these driving puns. I don't mean to, but yeah, you know, I think the abilities of this probe data, the ceiling is much higher. So I'm hoping that things keep trending in the right direction.
And it is so much more accurate nowadays with the prevalence, obviously, of, you know, now everyone, you know, past, I feel like the age of 6 has a cell phone, where you know, everyone right now is a user of some sort of a service, integrated service, and there's so much private data that, yeah, I mean, you know, if you're interested in that type of aggregated data, of course, you don't need loop detection. You don't need, you know, accurate video detection or anything like this. You just look at the high level data that comes in.
And in a strange way, the pandemic may indirectly help this because, you know, one of the biggest services of probe data are the service carriers like FedEx and Prime and UPS. And I mean, it was already trending that way, but now, you know, they're everywhere, especially the Prime vehicles. I mean, I think I said in our last time we did this panel that one of the things, if I had to look back again, would have been to build a gas station next to an Amazon distribution facility. But, you know, it's crazy how much that's proliferated over the last year. So that, you know, and those are a large part of the fleet that collects this probe data. So I think that's helped us a lot too.
And with the probe data, you know, it's getting better and better, but sometimes, you know, as engineer, we oftentimes have to validate, and we can't do every location, but we can selectively look at it and see how well is it, how accurate it is. And one of the things that we knew that these data are going to be available everywhere. So one of the things is what are our goals in designing our system timing? Is it for efficiency or is it for multi-use? I'm just speaking specifically in Cary. We want our roadway to be more friendly to the pedestrian, more friendly to the cyclist and other user, not just the motorist. So when we made that the ultimate, what are our priorities? And so that's when we made our design maybe completely a little bit different than other community where efficiency is more prevalent than multimodal use. And so when we design, we look at all that. What are our community? Who are we serving? And what are our purpose? And so that's why when we want to make sure these data are correct, because you know, a lot of left turn conflict with the pedestrian. And if we're one trying to serve the pedestrian, we would like to know how the accurate of those data. And so that's the reason why we went forward with adding adding cameras and looking for other software or hardware to help us achieve our goal.
So you start to get all the more real-time data. We get more probe data, up-to-date data, volume. You know, we get to see how many bikes and peds, trucks, and so on. How are you going to use all that data? How's that going to change the way you make decisions, operating and day-to-day decisions?
Well, if you know, a certain time of the day, you know, you know, there are a lot of activity near the school, a lot of activity. So we might put that prioritize, and we do more leading pedestrian. And maybe during the morning where we're trying to get parents from point A to point B, or commuter point A, point B, we may put a little bit more priority in our timing system, time for efficiency for vehicle, so that we tailor to the need with these accurate data. And that's how we're going to approach it.
So for us, it's twofold, I would say. So one is when we're looking at the way that our program is structured, it's really more of a full-scale retiming, you know, every few years on a corridor, whereas on our municipal systems, it's more of a day-to-day operations, keeping track of things, although obviously they do full-scale retimings as well. But so the way that we typically do that is, you know, we get a handful of counts at the intersections along the corridor, you know, on a single 13-hour count. And we model it in Synchro, and we base our design on that. We go out and implement in the field, and obviously it doesn't work exactly like it did in Synchro because we're not working with perfect data, and then we have to fine tune everything. So I think if we had more data and better types of data, it would potentially allow us to get less counts or no counts, because we would have, like Tony said, aggregated data over weeks or months at a time. You know, we know the last 15 Mondays in a row what the data was like, and we can aggregate that as opposed to having a single Wednesday 4 months ago that we're basing that Monday design on. And then hopefully that also leads to being able to do things quicker, because the fine-tuning process should be a lot lighter if our design is better on the front end. The other piece is being able to keep an eye on how the operations are, again, day to day, because we lack the cameras, you know, at our closed loop systems. Again, municipalities, they have the cameras, they have some better data, so they can really see how things are operating on a day to day. For us to do that, it's really like boots on the ground is the bulk of what we're going to have. We're going to know things aren't working well when citizens complain, or, you know, our division staff let us know that things aren't working well, and we might need to take a look at it. So if we have real-time data coming in, you know, we can set some parameters for performance metrics, you know, let us know when these things are outside of these thresholds, as opposed to, I guess, a little bit more proactive, or at least much more quicker reactive than we currently do things.
And the key point that comes out of all this is, you know, what are our resource and how should we approach the to do system timing. You know, if we have, you know, fortunate for municipality, we have all these available data to us, but looking at Matt, his department, they have to look at, they have so many signals that they have to look, you know, they don't have all the data they need. So their approach to design is completely different than what and so there's no one mode fit all. It's just make sure when you design, what are your purpose and what are your intention, and what kind of data you have. So not one system is better than the other. It just, we just have to work with what we have.
Yeah, and I think, you know, that, you know, in my position, we do a lot of the operations on the street stuff, and then I also work a lot with our districts on, you know, driveway permitting and development and things like that. And, you know, this information is not just going to be good for her operations. It's going to be, you know, we're in an ITE meeting, so I don't want to say we're going to get rid of the trip generation manual or anything along those lines. But you know, we're you know, there's going to be an ability for, you know, let's say a Publix wants to come in, and instead of going to a book and getting trip generation, we can say, all right, well, here's this Publix 2 miles down the road. You know, we can use probe data and get their trips, their ingress and egress, and their OD information. And, you know, we can get maybe, you know, a traffic impact analysis may actually look more at the traffic impacts of that site and not just the, you know, generic grocery store land use code, blah, 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 from, you know, this, that, the other. And so, you know, I think there's going to be, you know, ramifications for a lot of different things. And I'm hoping that, you know, one of the side effects of what we've gone through this last year is that that'll speed things, that'll speed up and get here quicker. And because the folks on this meeting that, you know, are working with developers, and you guys know that unlike the last recession, they did not stop. So, you know, I think the development community was still on that first slide that I gave, where this is temporary and we don't care, we're not stopping. So, you know, which is great for the economy, but also tough for us engineers to try to, you know, keep up with the moving landscape, but also not stop. So, but I think that information is going to be good, you know, for a lot of different things. And I think, you know, it could also help. You know, I think a lot of states, their TIP process, their scoring systems may change if our peak hour volumes don't go back to what they were. You know, a lot of TIP projects that were designed for certain peak hours, you know, they may be either more needed now or less needed than they were before. So, you know, having the ability to quickly get this data and be able to rescore things may be important, because, you know, we don't want to obviously go through a whole new prioritization process for things, but if we can do quick tweaks, it may be, you know, a good way to be able to allocate, you know, money very well in a place where, you know, billions get spent. We don't want to, you know, do anything knee jerk. We also don't want to spend money if the project's not needed anymore, or if there's something, you know, a couple miles away that's much more important now. So
that's an interesting point, and that could potentially be a huge challenge to overcome, because those TIPs and work programs are set in stone and based on data from, you know, a couple of years ago. How can we overcome that? Do you have any ideas, Andrei? On that's interesting.
Well, I mean, kind of piggybacking from the past phrase that Tony was mentioning. So it's a great idea, or it's a great point over there, because especially with the TIPs. So we have right now the I-85 widening that's still happening right now. Is the arterial improvements was designed in 2015, bid in 2013, bid in 2015. We're already in 2021, right? So clearly the situation is completely different at this point, right? So it's so part of it is, I guess, okay, this is a baseline. Now we have a solid baseline. Here the data has changed in these next couple of years. So technically it's good to have that consistent data so you can actually know. So, you know, one of my things is, unless you have consistent data, how do you know it has stabilized, right? Or how do you know it has changed, right? So in 3 years from when you started, if the conditions have changed radically, then you can try to do some sort of a, obviously no one likes, you know, any change orders, right? And throughout the duration of the projects, but any sort of tweaks that might be, you know, palatable, might not be, you know, such a huge cost incurrence, but still give you what you really need. So technically, if you know, you have a project in the TIP, which we have right now, Tony, 73 widening is still in the TIP right now. So if I'm not mistaken, that's still in there, right? With the conditions, constraints, and everything from that moment of analysis, which was, you know, 4 years ago, let's say. Yet if this, it's still on the plan for, let's say, you know, 5 years from now, or let's say 8 years from now, your baseline is a completely different one. And all these developments that are coming in, and they're not stopping, right? They're coming in, building out, and then your whole baseline has changed at that point. We actually have a great case over here in Concord, where massive development is supposed to pull up a couple of hundred townhomes and right across the street, basically from an Amazon warehouse. And that intersection was slated anyway for a grade separator intersection, if I'm not mistaken. Yet the true impact that massive development will have is going to skew the analysis, right? While it's a grade separator one, and that's all you need to know, that can still add in quite a little bit of a headaches.
One of the caution that I want to bring up is, you know, development continue and roadways still improve based on the old data. And so we made a lot of the changes, and the intersection operate very well. And so our citizen or motorists are saying, why are we investing all this money in this place, in this, and you use the old data, and it's shown that, you know, you really don't need that. And so likely chances they say, well, maybe we don't need these kind of improvements. So we have to find ways to justify it and explain to our citizen why we made the decision in the first place, because it's based on the database that we have before. But going forward, and it may not reveal itself until 4 or 5 years down the road, but we are in operation, so we have to deal with it now. And so some of the things that were cautioned, we have to make those justification now.
Speaking of customer expectations, how do you think COVID and where we are now is changing, or is maybe not changing, customer expectations of public agencies for traffic operations? What do you think they expect? Andrei?
Well, I can chime in and say that as far as I can tell from the travelers and the citizens, City of Concord, probably not. Probably the expectations have not changed. While we've received a whole lot less calls over here at the TMC for the issues that people call in and day out, than in past years. We have received a different amount of calls, basically for maybe some sort of more pedestrian time at an intersection, or sort of items like this. But in general, I still think the public wants to travel from point A to point B in a shorter amount of time, and the minimum amount of stops that they can have, especially on our arterial corridors over here. Anyone else?
Do you have something to add to that?
Yeah, I was just going to say that I think at a minimum, I think they have the same expectations and possibly even higher, because I don't know if, I'm sure everyone probably on the phone remembers, 6 or 9 months ago, if you went out and went somewhere, it was like you were on a rocket ship. It was incredible. I mean, you could get, I went to work at like the 7 a.m., I think over the summer, which would typically be a 30-minute commute for me. And I got there in 19 minutes because there was just no traffic. And so if anything, I think that some people at least probably got used to that, and now we're sort of slowly ramping back up, which means in terms of traffic volumes, which means obviously travel times are going to go back down and get closer to what they were before. So I would anticipate anyways that people at least have the same expectations, if not higher. They're going to be, if they've gotten used to what it's been over the last 6 or 9 months, then as we get back to the pre-COVID levels, they may be frustrated. Whereas if things had just stayed that way for the last year, it was business as usual.
I agree with Matt. I think the expectation is a lot higher because I think they're short memory, and it's like during the summer, not much traffic. I can get from point A to point B. Most of our signal we put in free run, so it's the most optimal. When they arrive on the side street, they get the light, the green right away, and so they're expected that. And now, as traffic increase, and we have to go back to use some of the tool for us to progress traffic. I mean, we have to put in back in coordination. Now they have to wait. And so they say, what? I mean, it works fine a couple of months ago, but they don't realize that their expectation is high. They say, well, I got there pretty fast last, a couple of months ago, but now it's different. What's the difference? And so we, as operation, daily operation, we have to come up with answer to these questions and have to respond to that. And so that's why I said the expectation is a lot higher, but we're going to have to, respond to their expectation as well.
I'm going to go to a question that's particularly relevant to what we're talking about right now. It has to do with speed. The question says, my sense is that 85th percentile speeds are up on all types of roadways. Is there enough data and time to show changes in crash frequency and patterns? My sense is less volumes, less patrols, more speeding. True. If crashes are up, any tips for municipalities to help reel them back in? Who wants to start?
I would say a simple answer to the first question is yes. I think we've all seen it. You probably observed it as a driver, and I mean, we've seen some information that unfortunately, even though volumes are down, speeds are definitely way up, and the number of crashes may not be up because there's less volume, so your crash rates are similar, but the severity of crashes has been higher this last year, and I think that's nationwide and probably worldwide. I don't think that's a specific thing in our area, but enforcement is the biggest thing, and that's not something that is there. And as far as we can't we certainly weren't going to go out and react to, you know, say a speed limit is 45 and the 85th percentile went up to, you know, 57, and we're not going to raise the speed limit. That would be, you know, personally, in my personal opinion, that would be much against many of the things that I feel about speed limits, but that's a whole nother technical session for a whole nother day. But, you know, it's one of those things where, you know, at the same time that we talk about things like, you know, enforcement are really important in a time like this, that, you know, the highway patrol and sheriff's departments and police departments are feeling the same revenue losses that we're feeling, and, you know, they're not able to do any more than they're doing. They're doing the best they can, and it's just, you know, as Matt and Wesley were saying, there's a new expectation of the Nürburgring or whatever that thing is in Germany, that, you know, you just do what you want these last few months, and as traffic grows, that's going to become, you know, we're going to get back to those places where the queue reaches back into curves and things like that, where, you know, we're going to have areas where there's going to be a quick return to reality for some folks, as far as, you know, waiting in line for, you know, long signal queues and having to travel at a slower speed and being in more, you know, moving rolling queues and things like that. And, you know, I think, you know, in our positions, we're all ready for the calls to come in, but, you know, it's just something that it's, what have you done for us lately? And we're going to have to adjust to it and be ready for it. But as far as, you know, the increasing things go, I completely agree that it's something that's been kind of an, you know, an unintended consequence of everything that's happened. And congestion, unfortunately, will bring that back, but that has its own set of issues. So
one of the things that we have to do is go back to the old tool that we have. Maybe we need to modify the coordination time, become less efficient. So if they go real fast, they're going to have to stop. But if they go at the speed limit, then they can progress right through. And I know that, you know, before pandemic, our citizens drive, and if they drive certain speed, they can go through the whole corridor. And, you know, with the pandemic, the speed have increased, so that, you know, the offset, which do we change the offset to increase the speed, or do we lower it down so we kind of keep the speed down? So we kind of have that tool in our pocket and we use it. We don't like to share it, but that's one of the tools we do use.
Yeah.
Well, we can do that. Sorry, Matt. Well, we can definitely do that with, you know, signal timing on a corridor. In the end, and I know this is, you know, not one of my pet peeves, but it's definitely one of the, I mean, why are we designing for different, you know, speeds than the posted ones? You know, that's obviously the other item. If there's a discrepancy right there, and Tony can go on this rant for probably a while over here. What are we trying to accomplish in the end if we do that?
Oh yeah. Tony, unless you want to add something. Oh, go ahead, Matt, and then I'm going to go on to the next.
No, I'll save any other speed limit conversation for next year's meeting, and we'll do a whole different.
Yeah, we'll do another one next year on it. Yeah.
I was just going to try to answer the question a little directly. Is that yes, we have tracked some not as much on arterials, but especially on our freeways, we've been using speeds kind of as a surrogate for the volumes that we're seeing out there. And you know, as volumes plummeted back in March and April, our speeds went up. Because there's little to no congestion, and that's a direct result of the capacity on the roadway. So those speeds have been coming down just as our volumes have been going up. It's a similar curve, although with less magnitude, obviously. And you know, I will just add to what Andrei said. You know, we run into situations just this week. I was talking about one where a corridor that's posted for 35, kind of artificially, it's probably more like a 45-mile-an-hour corridor. The 85th is like 49, and we're coordinated for 35. So we're introducing a lot of artificial stops, which is not efficient, or it's less efficient, I guess, than if we coordinated for the actual 85th. But there's a lot of other discussions to go into the speed that we select for coordination as it relates to the posted in the 85th.
Okay, I have another question here that's for Wesley, but it deals with budget. Going from 60 to 120 locations with video detection, did you get help from NCDOT or some other grant? Our municipality is not finding extra money for capital improvements right now.
What we did was we have a certain amount of budget annually to help increase the camera coverage. And fortunately for us, we had it in place prior to the COVID. So during COVID, we said, well, this is a perfect opportunity for us to take that money and upgrade it. And also the fact that during COVID, we were able to, there's a lot of vendor out there and contractor out there who were willing to do the work a lot cheaper. So we took that opportunity and were able to make use of this opportunity, and we were able to do that quickly, and we were able to upgrade our camera pretty cheaply, and knowing that we have quite a few vendor out there and contractor who are looking for, who are willing to do the work. But now, it's the other direction. So it's swing on the other direction. So we just happen to be very fortunate, and it hit us at the right time. So.
Yeah, that's going to be that is another technical session for another conference. Probably is the impact of the post-pandemic world on contractors and how stretched they're going to be and what kind of prices we're going to get going forward, because it's going to be a busy time once things move back along.
So I have a couple other comments I want to read from the questions here. Before I do, though, can we pull up poll number 4 and 5 really quickly, dealing with budget while we're on the budget issue? So poll 4 is, how has the pandemic affected your budget and allocation of budget for traffic operations projects? Significantly, moderately, slightly, or not at all? The poll up? Yep, there we go. Yep. Slightly is winning right now. 36% voted.
Wow.
Okay, so we have slightly. Let's go ahead and go to 5. If you do have shortfalls, what type of shortfalls are you seeing? Design, engineering, operating, or other?
We probably should have put an E in here for all the above, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
So operating is winning so far, which is interesting because we all just talked about the need for better operating. 29% voted. Okay. Very helpful. Thank you. Let me just read a couple because I want to get through some of these questions. This is a comment really. In Tennessee, we experienced higher fatal crashes, and tomorrow are partnering with our highway patrol on a campaign, Slow Down Tennessee. Driver behavior, speed, unrestrained, increased pedestrian fatals have been an issue. So Tennessee. Another comment, the thing we can do is communicate on the trends and express the need for law enforcement and educate drivers. Here's one. Have you developed any new contracts with fleet operators, event venue organizers, school boards, other traffic generator groups to discuss changes that have occurred and those helped you anticipate and have those helped you anticipate changes, coming changes? So you engage with fleet operators, venue, school boards to try to figure out what's going to happen with respect to traffic.
With schools, it's been tough because they're all siloed. There's, and other states may operate differently, but there's some general things from the governor, like we're all going to go back or this, that, and the other. But there's been a lot of, each individual district is going to do its own thing, and then you have your charter schools and your private schools that are, most of them have been in our area in person the whole time. So, there's a lot of different things on that. As far as events go in our region, and Andrei can attest to this, our biggest events are the NASCAR races, and then the Panthers games. But they're pretty standard when the Panthers games go down. It's a pretty standard thing. So it's been, they've had lighter crowds for the last few games before the last season ended. And for the NASCAR races, their biggest constraints right now are still the social distancing and those other standards, as opposed to the actual capacities that they're allowed to have. So we haven't reached that point yet with the larger event venues. The upcoming race in May, at this point, they're still capped at, I think, 24,000 fans, and I mean they can get 90,000 in there on a sold out day. So they haven't reached that point yet where we've had to make significant changes. At this point, we're just, you know, it feels almost like a trickle compared to a normal event. So there haven't been, it's mostly just been, you know, we're just going to keep a bare bones staff and do what we need to do. I think come the fall, that's probably going to be a different story. There's been, you know, I grew up in Buffalo, so I still follow a lot of things up there, and there's currently a big controversy going on up there because they announced that they're going to allow full stadium at the Buffalo Bills games, but they're going to all have to be vaccinated. And of course, that turned into another whole thing. Again, that's a whole nother session. But anyway, so, you know, that, and that may be, again, you know, we talk again next week, and that could be every stadium in the NFL, or it could be an NFL policy, who knows? But, you know, I think, you know, we're just going to have to stay on our toes with that stuff, and with schools, because every district is different. And, you know, like I said earlier, we don't know what's going to happen with the schools when it happens. If, you know, if 80% of the companies in a region where there's a certain school don't have their people go back to work and they're working remotely, I mean, if there's a mom or a dad that wants to take their kid to school instead of having them ride the bus, then, you know, that's just another person in the drop-off line that we didn't have before. So, you know, there's going to be a lot of various factors at play in that, and I think the return to work and the return to school are going to kind of work together, either against each other or for each other as we go on with this.
I think that the litmus test, at least for us, is going to be just what Tony was mentioning, probably the fall race, because, well, it is called Charlotte Motor Speedway. The Speedway is actually over here in Concord, so we end up doing all the traffic events for it. So we're going to see exactly what that entails. If it's going to be, you know, if it's going to be a full attendance event, it will probably be attended as a full attendance event due to the amount of things people were able to do as a group for the past, you know, year plus. But likewise for all the other ones. But no one has, you know, yet reached out for that, and I know that they will, because generally in the spring, right about, if I'm not mistaken, the first week of April of probably next year, if everything's going to go according to the plan, what used to be called the Carolina Rebellion is slated to return as basically a 3-day music festival, which, you know, it's it's probably going to be quite a challenge, to say the very least.
Anybody
Yeah,
want
that's kind of event that didn't have a lot of social distancing. Let's just put it that way.
That is correct.
Anyone want to add to that question? Okay, what I'd like to do is go ahead and put up the final poll, which is number 6. I'd like to get a feel from the audience. And then after that, I'm going to come back to the panelists to give you all a couple of minutes to give a closing statement or observation or some lesson learned that you'd like to share. So number 6 is, to what extent is COVID speeding up, in your opinion, speeding up other trends that were already developing, like high volume of trucks, work at home, customer expectations, and use of new technology and data? And extreme, yeah.
I was gonna say I don't get to answer. It won't let me, but I bet extremely's gonna win. There we go. I called it.
Yeah. Great. Okay, excellent. I have no more questions in the box for you guys. Let me just double check that. But who would like to go first in any closing comments?
I'll go first.
Matt, you're up. You got your hand up first.
Yeah. So I think that this is what this has made me realize, and I've already sort of harped on it, so I apologize for continuing to do so. But the importance of data and technology, especially again for me and our systems, we've always been kind of chasing the level of technology and data that our municipal systems have, and this is just going to make me run faster, I guess, because I see how, you know, when something like this happens, just how important it is. So it's really emphasized that to me, and we're trying to figure out some better and faster ways to get that sort of data and technology.
Excellent. Thanks, Matt. Wesley, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. For me, a lesson I've learned from all this is I've seen a lot of our citizens are working from home and have a lot of time to think and see what things that are important to them. And as an operation, aspect, I want to include those things that are important to them. I have a priority of certain things that I would like to do, but I guess from a lesson learned going forward is how can I get those information from them? And so we may have to use more social media and rely on those things to get what they really need. Because our whole purpose is to serve our citizen. And if they have a different priorities and we have a different priorities, that, you know, it's not serving their purposes. And so that's why we have to, as in Cary, I have to rethink about the signal timing, where we have to serve our pedestrian, our cyclists, and not just our motorists. And so getting those information, what are important to them, and be able to serve them in that way. And it requires additional work and additional data, not just data that we get from our detection or other means, but their voice as well. And so the town have set up such things, website, you know, Facebooks and other means, so that we get the input back from our citizens.
Andrei, you're up.
I'm personally amazed. So while I come in from a different background than these gentlemen over here, so I come in from the kind of electrical computer engineering type domain and all that. I am in awe and amazed of how resilient we proved to be, and how quickly we were able to shift everything to this new norm, to try to do a whole lot more things virtually, to try to, be able to do these things like the one that we're doing today, basically. How quickly we were able to just shift and do all these things, and how good it was proven to be, and how now the expectation is that we are able to do some of these meetings and some of these things remotely. So, let's think about a new type of work schedule. Let's think about all these things. To me, that's what that's the biggest stake, for the last year and a bit.
That's great. It is exciting to think about what we can do and build on this. Tony.
Well, Andrei kind of stole one of the things I was going to say, and also, the thing that I said earlier about wishing I had, owned a gas station next to an Amazon distribution warehouse. But it's ironic that, Andrei said he didn't have the same background as us, but the thing that he just said is, and a lot of people on this call probably nodded, because it's the thing that we as traffic engineers have been imploring the private world to do for years and years and decades, which is stagger your work schedules and work from home, and all these kind of things that helped from a traffic congestion standpoint. We were looking at it selfishly from this is how we can make roads function better and help people get around and help all modes of travel move with mobility. And now we're here because of this global pandemic, and we all had to stay home, and so we couldn't really see what it did to traffic because we were all supposed to sit at home. So But I do think, both from my position in life as a traffic engineer and just in general with how I am with things, I'm the biggest introvert there is. But, I think one thing I've learned is that the final answer for me as a person is a hybrid situation. It's not before this all started, I would have told you I could work from home 5 days a week and you'd never see me again and everything would be virtual and I'd be just fine. But I miss people, and I don't really like people, but I miss them. So it's one of those things that I think we're going to see that. I think we're going to see that from a lot of people. There's going to be almost a desire for us to get back to a meeting where we're all sitting in the same room, and so I think I definitely think the answer, the quote unquote new normal, is going to be somewhere in that middle. It's going to be. I don't think everybody's going to be going back to work. But I also don't think everybody's going to be staying at home and forced to do everything virtually. I think there's going to definitely be a mixed system, which will be a challenge for us as engineers, because a Tuesday might be different than a Wednesday, because 30% of the people might have stayed home on Tuesday and 26% might have stayed home on Wednesday, and it'll adjust what we do accordingly. But that's one of the fun things is, I guess they call it job security, right? So we'll keep that going. And then, you know, as we transition into the new age with the mixed fleet of connected vehicles and regular vehicles, and take this all in stride. And I still think, you know, data is going to be king, both the performance metric data and the data we can use to try to set the expectations as well as we can. So we'll see where everything goes, but it's going to be an exciting new challenge, and it's nice to be able to talk more positively about where we're going instead of where we've been, because it feels like we're heading that way. So that's the good news.
Outstanding. Yep, the future is definitely bright. Thank you to the four of you. Outstanding job on the panel. And to the audience, thanks for your attendance and for your questions. Really appreciate it. And we wish everybody a good rest of the conference. Have a wonderful day.